Darius was a man who always wanted to be noticed. People in his neighborhood knew him as strong, fearless, and sometimes reckless. He had grown up in a tough part of the city, where showing strength was a way to survive and earn respect. From a young age, Darius had learned that if you wanted people to listen to you, you had to be able to show that you could handle yourself. He lifted weights, ran long distances, and challenged anyone who doubted him. Every day he looked for ways to prove that he was stronger than everyone else. One afternoon, Darius was walking through the old part of the city, where the streets were narrow and lined with ancient buildings. At the end of the road stood a tomb that had been there for hundreds of years. It was a place that people visited quietly, showing respect to the ones buried inside. Darius did not care much about history or respect. He only cared about being the strongest. As he walked past the tomb, he noticed a tall man standing near the entrance. This man was wearing a simple uniform, and his posture was straight, firm, and confident. The people who passed by whispered quietly to each other. They called him Malik, the tomb guard. Malik was not like other men in the city. He was calm, careful, and very disciplined. People said he had a kind heart, but also a power that could not be measured with muscles alone. He had been guarding the tomb for many years and had seen all kinds of people come and go. Some tried to take shortcuts, others tried to show off, but Malik never lost his calm. He knew that real strength came from patience, self-control, and knowing when to act. When Darius first saw Malik, he felt a rush of excitement. Here was someone who looked confident, someone who seemed unshakable. In Darius's mind, this was the perfect opportunity to prove that he was stronger than anyone else in the city. He walked closer, his steps heavy and deliberate, making sure people noticed him. His eyes locked on Malik, and he spoke loudly so that everyone nearby could hear. "I am the strongest man here," Darius said. "No one can challenge me." People around him stopped and watched, curious and a little worried. They knew Darius's reputation, but they also knew Malik's. No one expected a fight, but everyone wanted to see what would happen. Darius took a deep breath, tightened his fists, and stepped even closer to Malik. He grabbed the guard's arm suddenly, expecting Malik to be surprised or maybe even resist. But Malik did not react the way Darius had imagined. At first, Darius smiled, thinking he already had the upper hand. "See," he said, straining slightly but with confidence. "I told you no one is stronger than me." But Malik did not move. His arm was firm, steady, and did not budge an inch. Darius pushed harder, expecting some reaction, maybe a struggle or at least some sign that Malik felt pressure. But nothing happened. Malik remained calm, and his eyes did not show fear or anger. They were steady, almost like he was looking right into Darius's thoughts. The crowd around them started to murmur. Some people gasped, while others whispered to each other. "Is he really not moving?" someone asked quietly. "It looks like the guard isn't even trying," said another. Darius's confidence began to shake. He had never met someone who could stand so still and strong. The harder he pushed, the more he realized that Malik was not a man who could be tested by simple force. This was not like the other men he had challenged before. Darius felt sweat on his forehead, and his arms started to tire. He had expected an easy victory, but now he was facing a problem he had never imagined. Malik finally spoke, his voice calm and quiet, but it was strong enough for everyone to hear. "Strength is not only about pushing or pulling," he said. "It is about control, patience, and understanding your own limits." Darius froze. He had never heard anyone speak like this before. His mind raced. He had thought strength was only about muscles, about how much force he could use. But Malik was showing him that there was more to strength than just physical power. The people around them were silent now, watching closely. Darius felt embarrassment creeping into his chest. He realized that he had been so focused on proving himself that he had not thought about what real strength could be. He tried to push Malik harder, but it was useless. The guard's arm was like a solid wall, unshakable and steady. Darius's muscles burned and his confidence dropped with every passing second. For the first time in a long time, Darius felt fear. Not the fear of getting hurt, but the fear of being humiliated. People were staring at him, and he knew that everyone could see he had failed. He had tried to show his power, but instead he had shown his weakness. Malik looked at him kindly, almost as if he understood what Darius was feeling. There was no anger, no insult, just calm strength. Darius let go of the guard's arm slowly, feeling his body relax but also feeling the sting of disappointment. The crowd began to disperse slowly, some people shaking their heads, some whispering words of admiration for Malik. Darius stood there for a moment, trying to collect himself. He felt a strange mix of shame and awe. He had thought he was the strongest man, but he had just learned that there were different kinds of strength. Strength that could not be measured by size or force alone. He had met someone who had something he could not understand yet, and it made him think deeply about his own actions. Darius's heart was pounding, but his mind was working faster than it had in years. He wanted to ask Malik how he could be so strong, how he could remain calm when facing someone like Darius. But he did not know how to speak without sounding foolish. Malik simply nodded at him, as if telling him that the answer would come in time, but only if Darius was willing to learn. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows on the old buildings in the tomb, Darius walked away slowly. He did not feel defeated in the usual way. Instead, he felt curious. He wanted to understand what Malik knew, what made him so different from everyone else Darius had ever met. That day, Darius realized that proving strength was not about grabbing someone's arm or showing off in front of a crowd. Real strength came from knowledge, control, and patience. And if he wanted to be truly strong, he would have to change the way he thought about power. That evening, as Darius sat alone in his small apartment, he could still feel Malik's arm in his memory, solid and unyielding. He remembered the calm look in Malik's eyes and the quiet words he had spoken. Darius knew that this encounter was not just a lesson but a challenge to become better, to grow stronger in ways he had never considered. And deep down, for the first time, Darius felt respect for someone who was stronger not because of how much he could lift or push, but because of who he was inside. By the time night fell, the city was quiet again, but Darius's mind was racing. He made a decision he had never made before. He would not forget this day. He would not go back to seeking respect through fear or muscle alone. If he wanted to be truly strong, he would have to learn, to be patient and to control his own impulses. And maybe, just maybe, he could become someone worthy of the kind of strength Malik had shown him. The next morning, Darius woke up with a strange feeling in his chest. The memory of Malik's calm strength from the previous day kept playing in his mind. For the first time, Darius realized that being strong was not only about muscles, loud words, or showing off in front of others. Something about Malik's presence had left a deep impression on him. He could not stop thinking about the tomb guard, the way he had stood so firm and calm, and the quiet confidence that made everyone respect him. Darius decided to go back to the tomb. He wanted to see Malik again, but this time he did not want to show off. He wanted to understand. The streets were busy with the usual morning noise. Vendors calling out their prices, children running and laughing, and people rushing to work. But Darius's focus was sharp. He walked quickly through the narrow streets until he reached the old tomb. It looked quiet in the morning sunlight, with a soft glow touching the ancient stones. When he arrived, Malik was already there. He stood near the entrance, just as calm and composed as before. His eyes followed Darius's approach, and he gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Darius stopped a few feet away, unsure of what to say. Usually he would speak loudly and confidently, but this time the words felt strange in his mouth. He wanted to speak, but he also wanted to show that he had come with respect, not arrogance. After a few moments of silence, Darius finally spoke. I wanted to understand something," he said. "Yesterday I thought strength was about muscles, about showing people that I am the strongest. But now I see that I was wrong. I don't know how to explain it, but I want to learn." Malik smiled slightly. His calm voice broke the silence. "Strength is not only what people see. It is what they do not see that matters the most. Strength is about control over your body, your mind, and your actions. It is about patience and understanding the world around you." Darius listened carefully, feeling a mix of curiosity and awe. He had never met anyone who spoke like this before. His life had always been about proving himself, fighting and pushing his limits, but Malik was talking about something completely different. Something deeper. Darius felt a spark of hope inside him. Maybe this was the beginning of a change he had never imagined. For the next few days, Darius returned to the tomb every morning. He did not bring friends or try to show off. Instead, he watched Malik quietly, observing how he moved, how he spoke to visitors, and how he treated everyone with respect. Malik noticed Darius's presence, but he did not act as if he had to teach him forcefully. Instead, he allowed Darius to learn by watching and thinking. One morning, Darius tried to speak again. "Malik," he said hesitantly, "can you teach me? I want to be stronger, like you. Not just with my body, but with everything." Malik's eyes softened. "Strength without guidance can be dangerous," he said. "If you want to be strong, you must be willing to learn patience, self-control, and how to face challenges without anger. You must understand that the world is not about proving yourself to everyone, but proving it to yourself." Darius nodded eagerly. He wanted this more than anything he had ever wanted. Malik began to teach him small lessons at first. He taught him how to stand still and focus, how to breathe deeply to control his energy, and how to pay attention to the smallest details around him. Darius felt frustrated at first. He was used to moving fast, to acting quickly, and to showing immediate results. But Malik insisted that real strength required time and effort, and that nothing worthwhile came instantly. Days turned into weeks, and Darius began to notice changes in himself. He felt calmer, more focused, and more aware of his own actions. His strength was no longer only about how much he could push or lift. It was about understanding when to act, when to wait, and how to control his emotions. He learned to listen to people rather than challenge them immediately, and he began to respect others without feeling the need to dominate them. One afternoon, a group of boys from Darius's neighborhood came to the tomb. They were curious about him, and they tried to tease him as they had in the past. "Hey Darius," one of them said, "are you scared of an old guard? You're supposed to be the strongest, right?" Darius felt the old anger rising in him, the desire to prove himself by showing his strength. But then he remembered Malik's lessons. He took a deep breath, relaxed his muscles, and spoke calmly. Strength is not always about fighting or showing off. Sometimes it is about staying calm and thinking before acting. The boys stared at him, surprised by the change in his behavior. They had expected him to shout, push, or intimidate them, but Darius did nothing of the sort. Instead, he smiled slightly and walked away, leaving them confused and impressed. Darius felt a quiet sense of pride. He had not needed to use his muscles to earn respect this time. He had used his mind and his control. Malik watched this from a distance and nodded. He knew that Darius was learning, but he also knew there was still more to teach. The guard began to introduce more advanced lessons, showing Darius how to handle difficult situations with intelligence and strategy rather than force. They practiced moving quietly, observing the surroundings and understanding people's behavior. Every lesson challenged Darius in ways he had never expected, pushing him beyond his physical limits into the world of mental and emotional strength. One day, Malik asked Darius to try something different. "Today," he said, "I want you to test yourself, not against me, but against a challenge you cannot control. You must learn to stay calm even when things are uncertain." Malik took Darius to the city square where a busy market was in progress. People were rushing, carts were moving, and the noise was overwhelming. Malik asked Darius to stand still and observe everything without reacting immediately. At first, Darius felt anxious. He wanted to push, to move, to act, but he remembered Malik's words and focused on controlling his breath. He watched people, noticed the smallest details, and remained calm as the chaos surrounded him. Hours seemed to pass, but Darius did not move. He had learned patience, and he felt a new kind of strength rising inside him. By the end of the day, Darius realized that this strength was more powerful than anything he had felt before. He could stay calm in a busy market, understand the people around him, and control his reactions. For the first time, he felt that he could handle challenges without relying solely on his muscles. He had grown stronger in ways he never imagined, and he knew that Malik's teachings were helping him become a better person. The city began to notice a change in Darius as well. People who once feared him now respected him, not because he was the biggest or the strongest, but because he had learned to act with control and patience. Children watched him with curiosity, and adults nodded in approval when he walked past. Darius felt proud, not because of power over others, but because he had earned a new kind of respect for himself. One evening, as the sun set and the streets became quiet, Darius and Malik sat near the tomb. Darius looked at the guard and said, "I never thought strength could be like this. I always thought it was only about fighting, about winning, but now I feel like I am learning something much bigger." Malik smiled. "That is because true strength is not only in your body. It is in your mind, your heart, and your actions. You have learned patience, control, and awareness. But the journey is not over. Strength is something you continue to build every day. Darius nodded, feeling a sense of peace he had never experienced before. He understood that he had begun a transformation, and he wanted to continue learning. The days of showing off and seeking respect through fear were gone. He wanted to grow, to become truly strong, and to live a life where people respected him for who he was, not just what he could do. The tomb, once a place that Darius had ignored or disrespected, had become a place of learning. Malik, the calm and strong guard, had become a teacher, and Darius had become a student willing to change. The lessons were not easy, and there were times when frustration and doubt returned. But Darius had learned that strength was a journey, not a destination. As the night fell, Darius walked home with a calm mind and a determined heart. He had begun to understand what it meant to be truly strong, and he knew that Malik's guidance would help him continue growing. The thug who had once sought to prove himself through force was now a man learning patience, control, and true power, the kind that came from within, not from pushing or grabbing. As weeks passed, Darius continued his training and learning under Malik's guidance. The thug who had once been feared in the neighborhood for his strength and recklessness was slowly changing. He woke up earlier in the mornings, ran through the streets quietly, and practiced controlling his movements and his thoughts. Every day he remembered the lesson that Malik had taught him. True strength was not about how much force he could apply, but how well he could control himself and act with patience and intelligence. The city began to notice a different Darius. People who had once avoided him now looked at him with curiosity and respect. Children would sometimes follow him as he walked, mimicking his calm movements. Adults nodded to him as if they could see the change in him, even if they did not know exactly what had happened. The transformation was slow, but it was steady. Darius felt proud, but not in the old way of wanting to show off. His pride came from the satisfaction of learning, of growing stronger in ways he had never imagined. One afternoon, Malik took Darius to a different part of the city. They walked through a busy marketplace full of noise, chaos, and people rushing in all directions. Malik stopped and asked Darius to observe everything around him. The merchants shouting prices, the children running and laughing, the animals moving through the streets, and the carts rolling by. "Do not act," Malik said. "Do not try to control anything. Only watch, understand, learn patience." Darius felt a little nervous. The old Darius would have rushed forward, pushed people aside, or tried to show dominance. But now he remembered Malik's lessons. He focused on his breathing, relaxed his muscles, and watched carefully. Minutes passed, then an hour, and Darius stayed calm. He noticed small details that he had never seen before. A child holding a basket tightly to avoid dropping it. A merchant signaling silently to another. A stray dog carefully moving around a cart. He realized that understanding what was happening around him was as important as being strong. Malik smiled. "You are learning well. Strength is not only about what you can do with your body. It is about awareness. It is about understanding people, situations, and yourself. A strong person can control not only their muscles but also their mind." Darius nodded. These lessons stayed with him, shaping the way he acted in every part of his life. When he returned to his neighborhood, he no longer felt the need to fight or prove himself. Instead, he helped others, guided younger boys away from trouble, and gave advice when people asked. He realized that real strength was a form of protection, a way to make the world around him better, not just a way to show power. One day, as Darius was walking near the tomb, he saw a young man trying to lift a heavy object by himself. The young man struggled and was about to hurt his back. Darius approached quietly. "Let me help you," he said calmly. He guided the young man, showing him how to lift properly and safely. The young man looked at Darius with surprise. "I didn't know you were so calm," he said. Darius smiled. "Strength is more than just muscles." "You'll see," he replied. Malik, who was standing nearby, watched quietly. He nodded to himself, knowing that Darius had learned one of the most important lessons. True strength helps others. It is never used to intimidate or harm, but to protect and guide. The thug who had once grabbed Malik's arm in arrogance was now someone who others could rely on. Weeks turned into months, and Darius's reputation continued to change. Stories of his transformation spread quietly through the neighborhood. People spoke of him not as the strongest man to fear, but as the strongest man to respect. Children began to look up to him, learning that strength could come with wisdom and patience. Adults admired the changes in him, noting how he handled situations calmly and respectfully, even under pressure. One evening, Darius returned to the tomb after a long day. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Malik was already there, standing by the entrance as always. Darius approached and said, "Malik, I want to thank you. You have taught me more than I ever thought I could learn. I used to think strength was only about showing power, but now I understand. You have shown me what it truly means to be strong." Malik looked at him and smiled. "The journey is never truly over. Strength is built every day. You have learned well, but remember, there will always be challenges. How you face them will define who you are." Darius nodded. He understood that the lessons would continue for a lifetime, but he also felt confident that he could face whatever came next. His body was strong, but his mind and heart were even stronger now. He felt ready to face challenges not with anger or fear, but with patience, control, and understanding. A few days later, the city faced a difficult situation. A large delivery cart had tipped over in the main street, blocking traffic and causing chaos. People were shouting, trying to move the cart, but it was too heavy for any one person to lift. Without hesitation, Darius stepped forward. He called to a few strong men nearby and calmly directed them on how to move the cart safely, using proper technique and teamwork. Within minutes, the cart was upright and the street was clear again. People cheered quietly, but more than that, they felt relief and admiration. Darius had handled the situation without force or anger, using strength wisely and carefully. Malik, standing a little distance away, smiled knowingly. He had seen this moment coming. The boy who once wanted to prove himself by grabbing his arm had grown into a man who could lead, guide, and protect. True strength, Malik knew, was never about showing off. It was about control, patience, and wisdom, the very qualities that Darius now carried with him. Over time, Darius became a respected figure not only near the tomb, but throughout the city. People sought his advice, children looked up to him, and even adults asked him for guidance in difficult situations. His reputation had shifted from fear to respect, and Darius felt proud, but this pride was different. It was quiet, steady, and full of humility. He had learned that real strength did not need to be shouted about. It was shown in actions, in patience, and in the ability to remain calm even in chaos. One evening, as Darius walked past the tomb with Malik, he paused and looked at the guard. "I think I finally understand," he said softly. "Strength is not just about winning. It's about knowing yourself, controlling yourself, and helping others." Malik nodded. "Exactly. You have learned well. Now you must continue to grow. Every day is a chance to become stronger, not just for yourself, but for those around you." Darius smiled. He felt a deep sense of peace and purpose. The journey that had started with arrogance and a desire to show off had led him to wisdom, patience, and real strength. He knew he still had much to learn, but he also knew that he had taken the first steps on a path that would shape his life forever. That night, Darius returned home and looked at his reflection in the mirror. The boy who had once thought strength was only about muscles and fear was gone. In his place stood a young man who had learned discipline, patience, and control. He had learned to respect others, to act wisely, and to use his power for good. The transformation was complete, not in a single moment, but through dedication, learning, and guidance. As he closed his eyes that night, Darius felt calm, confident, and ready. Ready to face any challenge, ready to protect those who needed him, and ready to live a life defined by true strength. The tomb, once a place of challenge and confrontation, had become a place of learning, respect, and growth. And the man who had once tried to prove himself by grabbing Malik's arm had finally learned the greatest lesson of all, that the strongest person is not the one who can push the hardest, but the one who can control himself, understand the world, and act with wisdom. Darius knew that his life would never be the same. He had discovered a power that could not be measured by muscles alone, a power that came from patience, understanding, and inner strength. And for the first time in his life, he felt that he was truly strong.